All right, y'all know the rules. If you need to interrupt me, just go ahead and interrupt me.
Tanisha says she's on her way to get on.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if Lori's getting on. She ain't on yet. Okay.
Check on them. I'm recording it this time though, so
Okay.
if they miss it, we we got them this time.
We got him.
We got them.
Okay.
The last class I named, we gotta let white people off the hook. This class, we're gonna talk a little bit more about how our country is constructed. The first thing I want y'all to see is this is something that we've looked at before, but let's go with this. This is the American Anthropological Association's official statement on race. They did this in 1998. Y'all have seen this before, but there was a particular paragraph in here that I wanted to go to start this class off. It says, as they were constructing U.S. society, leaders among European Americans fabricated the cultural, behavioral characteristics associated with each race, linking superior traits with Europeans and negative and inferior ones to blacks and Indians. Numerous arbitrary and fictitious beliefs about the different peoples were institutionalized and deeply embedded in American thought. Now, it says as they were constructing United States, U.S. society. How does one construct a society? Right? Now, I want to just show you some of the ways in which one constructs a society. But one thing you do is you use the laws to help you construct a society. So I want you guys to look at this. This says Jim Crow laws. It shall be unlawful for a Negro and a white person to play together or in company with each other in any game of cards or dice or dominoes or checkers. This was Birmingham, Alabama, 1930. Void when a party is a white person and the other is possessed of 1/8 or more of Negro, Japanese, or Chinese blood. When one constructs a society, you use laws to construct a society. We in this country believe white people are born hating black people, and black people are born hating white people, and these are just positions that God gave us, and there's nothing that we can do about it. But I argue that the laws in this country have created the disposition and the attitudes of the people of today. When we look at laws like this, we got to ask ourselves a question. We got to say, is this the attitude of the people of the time? Did whites feel in their humanity at this time that they did not want to play with blacks? And I say we need to ask this question because it begs another question. If whites despised blacks at this time, if this is what their attitude was, then what was the need for the law? What was the need for penalties to be associated with an attitude that you already have? See, the law is necessary when you don't feel that way. When we talk about racist laws affect both sides. See, when you take the position of black and you own it, right? And you look at a law like that and you like, oh, that was racist against me. But when you a whole human and you don't own the black position, you can look at that and you can say, this law steals the humanity of both people. Because now something that I would want to organically do as a human, play with other humans, is illegal in my town, in my city. When we stop owning these racial categories, we can get a little bit of our humanity back. And when you're a whole human, you can start to look and see that even though these benefited one race per se, if it stole the ones who benefited a little bit of their humanity, then they really didn't win either. Everybody lost. But again, we're talking about when one says constructed U.S. society, we're not talking about the buildings. We ain't talking about the railroad system. Somebody fabricated cultural behaviors and characteristics associated with these races. They're trying to carve the way you feel and understand a people. When you construct it, they're trying to construct an attitude of their citizens toward non-citizens. A disposition that they didn't have already, because organically, with both parties in their humanity, these things would never happen organically like this. But somebody gotta take you off your path and construct a society where you have racism and racist views upon people. And this is a construction, a fabrication, a lie that everybody has been taught in order to have the American society that we have right now. And so we have to defeat some of these narratives about how we got to where we are. When you don't own the black position no more, you don't have to walk around feeling like white people hate you. And if white people do have a disposition about you because they think you black or they know who you are, because this is America and that's how we walk around, like we know who everybody is. But when I look at your skin color, you gotta understand that this ain't no position that they was born with. They wasn't born not wanting to play with you. This is the result of laws in this country creating a disposition between people. And it's our responsibility as an organization that's teaching people how to get their citizenship. We also got to close this gap that race has put in between us all. Look at this. Again, we looked at this last week. This is a list of Jim Crow laws by state. When I was learning these facts in black history, owning the black position, these laws were like proof that white people didn't like you. But now when you get your humanity back and you don't have to own the black position, you can step back and look at these things again. You can see that white people were being trained how to feel about you. So I got some little notes here. My first thing I wrote down is knowledge of self is the greatest knowledge of them all. Right? All right. When you know you're not black, when you know that in the game of America, they're playing this game with identity, and they're trying to control people's humanity and what they do and how they see themselves with this identity. When you know who you are, you know you don't got to accept the identity that was chosen for you. When you have knowledge of self, you can go to a racial category, right? With your skin as dark as it is, understanding that it's a choice and you can choose any one of them. And if they already knew who you was, they wouldn't be asking you. And you can check white and understand that it's checking citizenship in this country because you know who you are. When you understand yourself as black, there's only one choice for you on a racial category. But when you understand your total humanity, when you have the greatest knowledge of all, knowledge of self, you can go to a racial category and you can know how to fill it out because you know who you are. You understand the con of this country. The con, right, is all about identity, and this is what they know. They know that how you see yourself dictates what you do in the world. This country understands that identity also dictates how the world treats you. When the United States decided to construct a society, right, off of exploiting people who weren't their citizens, the non-whites, guess what they had to do? They had to teach the world to dislike you too. See, because if the world disliked you, then as they exploit you, nobody is going to say anything. Nobody going to care. So in order to make the world hate you while they exploiting you, they had to fabricate these cultural behaviors, cultural and behavioral characteristics associated with you. See, that's the power of identity. And you not understanding who you are, accepting a black identity that they created for exploitation. They had to teach the world to hate you also. Because if the world hated you, then the United States can continue to exploit you and nobody's going to care. What did they do? They linked superior traits to Europeans and negative and inferior ones to black and Indians. And when they say they, when I'm saying they, this isn't white people to a man. This is a group of individuals trying to construct a society in a certain way. This is the elite of the elite. White people, or the citizens, they were being taught their position just like everybody else. So when I say they, when we talk about the people who constructed this society, we talking about probably less than 1% of the population who were pulling the strings and who understood what they were trying to get to and understood that they was going to have to drag the white people along with it in order to create this society that we in now. The game is to control identity. Because if we can control identity, then I can control how the world treats you also, and how you see yourself. See, blackness is an identity. It's about how you see yourself too. And another thing that we've talked about at length is how race affects health, how race affects education, how race affects all these different things. Here's an article. It says race, not just poverty, shapes who graduates in America, and other education lessons from a big new study. I can put this into the chat, the link into the chat. But this is what some of the key things. It says poverty is not a proxy for race when it comes to academic outcomes. Education policy sometimes proceeds under the assumption that socioeconomic status matters, but that race and racism aside from their impact on family income don't. Right? This is the assumption, the narrative that's out there. But this study say no. Even so the argument is that when you're talking about academic achievement, it's more about whether you poor or not, rich or poor. And they saying in this study that even adjusted for poverty, even if you got two families that both are in poverty, but one is white and one is black, you still have better outcomes on the white side. So now it's not even about how much money you have, your education outcomes in this country. And so when we want to understand why, even if adjusted for poverty, you still have whites having better outcomes in our education system than blacks, it's not about money. When people start making the argument, well, maybe whites just are smarter than blacks and this, that, and the other, even when you adjust for poverty, this, that, and the other area, it still come out that way. The thing that explains this is identity, okay? Because identity is how you see yourself. When they doing these studies, right, when they're accounting for race, what they're not accounting for is race is how you see yourself too. So when you talk about outcomes, right, how you see yourself affects outcomes too. If you saw yourself, and what we're starting to see is that when you see yourself as black and a bit of your humanity is being taken from you, you don't have a positive self-image. And when you don't have a positive self-image, it's being reflected in the education outcomes in this country. But if we were to go even further, and I'm on Wikipedia and I'm just going to type race and health. Watch this. It says health disparities defined as preventable differences in the burden of disease, injury, violence, or opportunities to achieve optimal health that are experienced by socially disadvantaged populations. Okay. Health disparities are intrinsically related to historical and current unequal distribution of social, political, economic, and environmental resources. Social, political, economic, and environmental, cultural, and biological factors constitute determinants of health. The relation between race and health has been studied from a multiple disciplinary perspective, paying attention to how racism influences health disparities and how environmental factors, psychological factors respond to each, and to genetics. Now, what they're saying in race and health also is that not only because of your race do you have unequal access to health care, but how you see yourself is a mental thing. And a lot of blacks have a lot of health issues, and a lot of it has to do with not just the society pressures of racism, of being in an exploited class, but also how they are forced to see themselves too, like a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue because this country is constructed to exploit blacks. it's constructed to continue of this fabricated cultural characteristics about you, which the media puts in your face constantly all the time. And so the black position is not just exploited financially or legally, but it's also mentally too, because you got a burden that nobody else has of being this exploited class, of being these people that have to be beat up on or degraded in order to create white supremacy. A people that's got to get the short end of the stick in order to show that whites are getting the better end. And that takes pressure, that puts pressure and stress on you in a mental situation, a mental capacity, a financial capacity, a physical capacity, everything. So, one of the big narratives in this country is that white people hate you. And that white people for centuries have always hated black people, and these are just two positions that we're supposed to be in. And we need to understand that when you're constructing a country and you're using the laws of the country to create the attitudes of the people, and when you got a law that say kids can't play together, the kids didn't want it that way. When we really take our humanity back, we got to ask ourselves, did white kids not want to play with black kids? And if that was the case, why would a law need to be made? But if somebody gonna make a law to prohibit kids from playing with each other, now that's not about people's attitudes. That's about constructing something. We're constructing a society of haves and have-nots. We're constructing a society that we want the citizens to look at another people a certain way. We're constructing a society that we're going to use race and the identities that we put on people, the fabricated ones, to not just make the European population in this country dislike blacks, think that they're inferior, but we're going to do this so that the world also feels the same way. The world also believes in these bogus characteristics that are now associated with these races, these identities. To truly be a human is to truly understand how we got to where we are and who you are. Knowledge of self take you out of the black position, for starters. And your humanity say, people aren't born to hate me. So how did we get here? Your humanity says, how, if the law could treat somebody one way and somebody else another way, then it's something more. This law is not for humans. This law is for status. And what status am I in? And how can I get to the one of the preferred one? Because the law can't see your color, but the law can understand your status and treat you according to your status. And so when you get unequal, it's not racism. It's not because of somebody's attitude. The law was created so that people's attitudes don't stop justice. You could be somebody that nobody like in your community, but if you're a community of laws, you can still get justice even if somebody don't like you. Law was put into place so attitudes don't affect justice. And then we taught in this country that we got racist judges and racist this and racist that, trying to hide something, trying to hide the fact that this is law. It's not about feelings. So feelings aren't the reason why you losing all of these court cases, or feelings aren't the reason why you getting locked up every time you get pulled over. Or feelings ain't the reason why every time you pulled over you getting a fine. This is not because white cops their feelings towards you. It's because you're in a status to be exploited. And it's not about feelings. It's about status. It's about who can be exploited and who can't. See, there's a lot of different narratives going around to keep this con going on. So these are the things that we need to understand. We need to separate a little bit. We need to understand how we got here. I labeled the last class, we gotta let white people off the hook. We gotta let white people off the hook. Let me go back to one. What are my racist laws again? Boom. They got one about anti-miscegenation. In our last class, we talked about how I think I made the statement like if a white man, even in 2019, if white people have a feel some type of way about, their family marrying a black person or something like that, we like to look at that as evidence of them being racist. But, I argue anti-miscegenation laws come all the way from 1860s, where it was literally illegal for whites to marry non-whites. Now, even when we talk about that, let's just take a step back, right? And understand that even in the superior position, quote unquote, of white, here's a law that's limiting me in who I can marry. So like, in the black position, we like, anti-miscegenation laws, they made it illegal to, for us to marry. Those laws affected both sides. And if I'm in the superior position of white, I'm still feeling some type of way about anti-miscegenation laws. Because I'm like, why do you even care about who I marry? My government care about who I marry. That's a little bit too close, I don't even know if I want my government that close. And so it's putting a barrier even on the people in the superior side. But when you in the black position, you can't even look at it like that. You just like, oh, they carrying me. So that's racism. But it's like, when you really look at it, that law bars everybody. That law is barring your humanity, even if you white. If I'm not into the racial categories, and I'm a European settler from whatever, and I just so happen to be in a white position, I'm still feeling some type of way about anti-miscegenation, laws. How dare a country tell me who I can marry? But through time, if that's the law and it's illegal, it's still going to make me say and teach my kids that non-whites are undesirable, especially for marriage. And our kids can't play with their kids. Remember how, it's racist. We be like, oh, it's so racist, but white people be like, you can't play with, our kids can't play together, right? Where did that come from? We like, oh, is that a organic thing that white people just don't want their kids? The first one say it's unlawful for a Negro and a white person to play together. This is not an organic feeling that white people was like, wake up and it's like, oh, we don't want our kids to play together. Somebody was constructing a society that wanted to keep these things separate. And it's really, it's really a dig on everybody's humanity, not just white people, but I mean not just black people, but everybody. Unlawful for a Negro and white person to play together. Now, again, our key, the answer key, and this is what I be giving y'all. This is Brown versus Walton. This is the answer key. In no part of this country, whether north, south, east, or west, does the free Negro stand erect and on a platform of equality with the white man. Why can somebody say something like that? Because we constructed. Because we constructing you as society. See, even when I used to think and I used to look at stuff like this, and I'm like, how can somebody say that? In no part of this country does the free Negro stand erect and on the platform. Like, how can somebody just decide that? And that be law? Like, how does that happen? But when you constructing a society, and this is what you want the outcome to be, right? This free Negro identity is necessary. And this white identity is necessary. I'm going to construct the identities, and then I just need people to fill the category now. See, I can say what these identities mean. I can't call out your humanity. I can't tell you who you are. But I can create this identity, and I can say that this identity that I created, this what it mean. And this identity, this what this would mean. Then I just need the people to fill the identity. Now I need people to fill the slot. I'll give you a little form, call it racial categories. I need you to fill the slot now. If you don't have knowledge of self, don't understand how somebody constructed a society, you listen to the baloney con that you was born black and I was born white. Well, you really ain't even got no choice then. If that's what you was taught, you get a racial category and you're going to fill it out like you were taught. Not even looking at it in a way that you have a choice, even though they asking you. You don't even see the choice in it because that wasn't how you were taught. You were taught you was born black. So when you get the form that asks you which one you are, do you represent this one that I created or this one? And you hit the free Negro black. Well, that's how you now carry the burden. Because you chose it. You didn't know who you was. A part of us constructing this society is trick bagging you. And then when you choose it, not thinking that you was born it, guess what started to happen? Now these fabricated cultural and behavioral characteristics that's associated with the races, now because you chose that race and you believe you was born it, you start to believe the characteristics associated with it too. You start to believe that that's you too. You start to believe that you are supposed to be in poverty. Look, you start to believe that, watch this. To him there is little in prospect but a life of poverty, depression, and of ignorance and decay. When I can get you to choose the category and believe that that's what you were born to do and be, and then I put all of these characteristics on it and these expectations, then you start, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, your choice. It said he lives amongst us without motive, without hope. Now watch this. Not because he was born to be that, but because of these categories that I created. And I created this one to mean something. And for this one to mean something, I can use my laws to make sure you live a life of poverty, depression, ignorance, and decay. I can use my laws to take away your motive and your hope. I can use the trickery of my laws, right? For you to think that you have freedom, but it's all a delusion. I could throw out the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, but if you can't understand them, then your freedom is all a delusion. When I can get you to accept the identity that I created, you mine now. Because if I can control the identity, identity controls what you gonna do in the world. And if I control the identity, I control what you gonna do, what you gonna be, how far you can, what your limit is. Not only if I can control your identity, that I can control how you see yourself and what you do. When I control the identity, I can also dictate how the world see you also. I can keep teaching the world that all you are, and use my laws to back it up, are impoverished, depressed, ignorant people. I can use my laws and all of my systems of government to teach the world that. If I teach the world this, and you this, you're going to see yourself as that. The world is going to see you as that. And while we obviously exploit you, the world is not going to care, and you're going to accept the position. That's how powerful identity is. That's how powerful identity is. And so when we talk about who we are, what we do, while we was waiting for everybody to join the call, and we want to be clear about who we are and what we do, we are an organization on a humanitarian effort to educate refugees, and that's non-whites in this country, of their choice of citizenship in America. That's who we are. How do we do that? We inform them that the racial categories are your opportunity for citizenship in this country. That you are not born black, white, or any of these racial categories. That you have a choice, and it matters. Number two is, once we teach people of this choice, this results in one nation, one category. Now you will have a nation full of citizens, not some citizens, some refugees or non-whites, or however we want to. And if you have a country full of citizens, the majority citizens, then you don't have an exploited class. And so race relations in this whole country would have to change if there wasn't a built-in, remember, this is a constructed society. When they constructed it, they built in an exploited class. All they had to do is keep the racial categories going. If we can teach this country race while we constructing it, and we control the identities, all we got to do is keep everybody checking these racial categories, different racial categories, and this construction can go exactly how we planned it. But our organization say, wait a minute, we understand the trick bag. If we wanted to change race relations in America, we understand that everybody not citizens. The first move is to create the awareness that, guess what? If you ain't white, you ain't a citizen. That's why you're getting treated the way you are. You got a choice in race. And when you choose it, it means something. Your knowledge of self and your humanity can have you look at a racial category when they give them to you and say, yeah, I know how to fill this out. I ain't born none of these positions. One of these positions was created to be exploited in this country. One of these positions, if I check it, is the position that creates white supremacy. It creates white supremacy by dogging that category out. Everything in my life been teaching me that I'm black, but now that I know who I am and I understand what that category means, I don't have to check that no more. The more people understand what black mean, what these racial categories is setting you up for, the fact that you continue to participate in race the same way since 1865 and race relations ain't changed, but we keep checking black. What they say, if you keep doing something over and over again, it's insanity. Black has never done anything good for the people who's been in the category, but we keep checking it and expecting something different to happen. Expecting one of these black organizations to save you at some point. Oh, Black Lives Matter or none of it. It's not going to be through black, because black was constructed to mean something. And so these are the facts that we need to understand. These are the facts that we need to. Race means something in this country, and it got nothing to do with Africa or your black or your skin color. And when you go down to that Social Security office and you tell them, I'm here to change something that matters. Oh, what you want to do? I'm changing my race. And when they have to do it, when they have to look at your dark-skinned face and change your race to white, that power right there will definitely support the fact that you have a different knowledge of self, for sure. That you have a different power that you didn't know that you could wield. That this society have to accept your whiteness systematically. That you're not a part of an exploited class anymore. And it's not because you changed your skin color, because you changed your status.